What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS Wise stream. We are discussing week 13. That's right, 13 weeks of the NFL regular season. And it's been wild. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined, of course, by the two OGs of the Wise Take Nation. First up, Mr. Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref, Patio Joe. Writer of that Cash Game article, winner of money. What's up, Joey?
Not much. It is Friday. It's week 13. It's going to be lucky week 13 for us. And for most of us, it's also the last week of our seasonal leagues, regular season. So it's time to make the playoffs, time to make that push, time to make that money for the nation.
That's right. All day. All day. Also joined by the GOAT, Paulie D, who you can find on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds because 7 wasn't good enough. Paulie, what's happening?
What's up, man? Good to see everybody.
Yeah, man. It's it's been an odd year. I think that we can all agree with, especially for us doing a job like this where sports schedules kind of dictate your schedule. And it's been one we haven't had, bro, since we've been doing this. We've always had NBA going on in between. We've had MLB at certain times in between, and had a lot of time in between. It's been good for us, I think, on a productive level. As far as NFL goes, we've been able to kind of dive in more, not press as much and have time. But in the same sense, man, it just seems like, it almost seems like, well, let me ask you guys, do you think the NFL season is going by quicker or slower without the other sports at the same time?
Quicker for me.
Quicker for me. You know me. There's only one sport going on right now. CK, what are you talking about?
Of course. I would agree. See, I would have thought that it would have gone by slower because we don't have these other sports to kind of keep us busy. But I agree, man. It's like I've gotten in this pattern of how I do my NFL research throughout the week, and now it just kind of seems like, I open my eyes and it's week 13, man. Over. Here we are.
Yeah.
But it's been a good year, man. It's been a good year. It's for DFS. There's probably a bunch of people that have had a shitty year that are about to rip me a new one. So, DFS-wise for us as a nation, as a Wise Take Nation. Dirties have been done. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying to say. Dirties have been done. Shout out to those of you in the chat hanging out with us late night. See Steve, Joe, D Millie, of course. D Millie with the videos. Did you see his latest video?
I love
His videos in the Slack chat, man. Never stop, bro. Never stop. D Millie. Of course, MG, OG MG. Chris Cox, mystery at the top up there. Appreciate y'all. Hit the like button if you haven't already. We're going to dive into some NFL Week 13 action here in just a second. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe. Make sure you hit the notifications bell. NBA season's around the corner. Our Black Friday deal is over, but we still have an opportunity for you to get the NBA pass for the cheap. Go check out our Twitter at Wise_take and, do dirties with us for the NBA because it's going to be a lot of fun. And we are ready to dive into Week 13, Joey. Give me a macro view, Joe. I think it's like an ugly kind of slate.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't know, if there's really obvious chalk plays that everybody's going to be on. I think the quarterback, ownership is going to be spread out. I even think the running back ownership is going to be spread out somewhat just because of price and kind of matchups and situations and lineup construction and stuff. I think I like a more balanced lineup building approach today than more stars and scrubs as it was last week.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think that a quarterback ownership will be spread out. I do think that running back in particular, and maybe a little bit of receiver, will see some concentrated ownerships. And some of the chalk that we're looking at this week is just unsettling type chalk. It's just, it's just some of the, like, you see the merit and you understand why it's chalk, but you're also reluctant because you understand what this is. Paulie, what about you, bro? What's your macro view?
Um, I do kind of agree that it's balanced, although it does appear that there's like some pretty large chalk developing at some positions. But quarterback, normally we've got like one or two guys that kind of like absorb a larger chunk of ownership. And this week feels like you might see like five or six guys at around 10 to 12% kind of deal, where usually there's like one or two guys that are in like the 15 to 25 range. But there's a couple guys that have developed or have, started to gain steam that could be very popular that I agree are kind of like unsettling type plays that, and never not very comfortable guys you want to play. But there's a couple games to me that stand out that I plan to attack, and I think it's like a stars and scrubs kind of week. Like I think there's so much awesome value at running back, receiver, tight end that you can get just about anything into your lineups. There's some like expensive stacks like Aaron Rodgers, Devontae, bring it back, or like Falcons, Saints, where you can get all the studs in the stack and then just surround it with value that I think is an interesting approach this week. So the stars and scrubs approach and determining which chalk is good chalk and which chalk that's a dick is what I'm looking to do.
Not all chalk is created equal, like dicks. Hey, you can do it on anything. You can do it on anything. Joey, we'll go over the quarterbacks here, man. Start us off. Obviously, Joe is going to cover FanDuel for us. His cash game article at YState.com does cover both sites. He gives a core for both sites. On this show, we're going to have Paulie covering DraftKings, Joey covering cash games in general, but specifically also on FanDuel, where he specializes in. Joey, go ahead. Start us off with quarterbacks at the top tier.
Quarterbacks at the top tier, when the weeks first started, when we did our preview show, Kyler Murray wasn't really on my radar. But then I went to it and I started looking at like the games that actually mean something this week. And this game between the Rams and Arizona is like a playoff game. They're both like kind of the same records. It's a division game, could make a playoff spot. Out of all the games, it's like to me, like I look at Cleveland, Tennessee, like I think that's going under. So I just feel like this game's going to shoot out, and Kyler Murray they're also going to shoot up his shoulder and make that pain go away. And I just think you want probably the best fantasy quarterback. And at 8,700, he's just like, I just feel like it's going to be back and forth type of game, and going to pay off at 8,700. He's my favorite pay up option. All the other guys above 8K, I could see. Obviously, Watson isn't fine for cash. If Fuller was there, it would almost be a lock. But because he's not, it's just Cooks and Kuti. Going to have to do more with his legs. Rodgers is in a good situation, of course, and Russ just hasn't been doing it for the last month for 9K. So push all those off to GPPs. And then I'll stop at 7,900 with Justin Herbert. I think that you play him also in cash. His home road splits right now are just ridiculous. Thrown for over 300 yards in every one of his home games. So 7,900, even at the slow pace of the Patriots, I like Herbert.
Sure enough. Paulie, what about you?
I think that you can spend up at quarterback position, especially in cash this week. I kind of echo what Joey said with Kyler, Deshaun, liking Kyler Murray at the top. Like the only reason not to like him is the fact that he hasn't played well in the last 2 weeks, and it seems to be paired with an injury. But like he should be improving. Like the injury should be improving. It's been 3 weeks now, and the guy's got the highest floor on of the position all season. Like I do agree, and there's value everywhere to get him. Very cool with Kyler Murray, and as Joe said, a game that really could shoot out. It should, and both teams really want to win, so you could just see like this game kind of take off in the second half. So him, Deshaun Watson, I think, like Joey said, he's gonna have to do more with his legs. So like that probably makes him more attractive if he's got to do more with his legs. The way the points are scored on DFS for quarterbacks running, right? And I think Aaron Rodgers on the high end, the way the pricing works on DraftKings, like he's actually cheaper than all four of those guys above him: Herbert, Watson, Murray, Wilson. And he's in a stud spot against the Philadelphia Eagles secondary we've been picking on for years, and he's just been awesome. This year he's been hyper efficient, only throwing a handful of picks, and they're getting healthier as a group. Although their starting center did just get it, but as a whole, they've been getting healthier. They're getting receivers back, they're getting alignment back, and Philly is like one of the better pass funnels to attack. So, Aaron, Deshaun, or Kyler are the three I like at the top.
Right on, right on. I mean, in cash games, obviously, you got other things to consider. In tournaments, to be honest, I don't think I'm looking to spend up at all. Like you said, Paulie, I think while there is good value, there's also a lot of studs to consider. And then you have to weigh out how strong the value is when you actually look at the plays. And even if you have like 10 awesome value plays, you still got to find the right ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joey, take us to the mid tier.
The tier is full of, I think that, like just GBP options, or I don't know, like I guess I'll cut it off to 7K because there is some guys below. There's a guy. Okay, I'll just finish off quarterback, to be honest with you. Forget because there really isn't much value. They're all kind of like in the mid tier. So the two guys that I will point out, I don't mind Jared Goff as a contrarian play. Seems to play good on the road sometimes when you least expect it. But I like cash, and nobody's really talking about it. And we were talking about it a little bit in chat today. Okay, like Kirk Cousins, like every home game he's had over 20 FanDuel points, and he's facing one of the worst secondaries in the league. And it seems to me like the Vikings kind of play to their competition, where Jacksonville's, I think, is going to score, and I think they're going to have to pass more. We have on record saying that Dalvin Cook is banged up, so they might limit him or put Madison in there a little more. They might throw a little more because when you have two good receivers like Thielen and Jefferson, I just feel like at 7,300, you have to pay attention to him if you're going to be paying down. The other guy is if he starts Ryan Fitzpatrick at 7,400. I think he's a great play against Cincinnati. He just boosts everybody in that offense. There's also a lot of injuries on that offense, so you kind of know where he's going to go. It's going to be like Parker, like it's going to be Gesicki. So it's pretty nice to just pair him with Parker. And then the other guy is the guy that we talked about on the first look is Mitchell Trubisky at 6,900 on FanDuel. Normally you would think no way, but in 4 career games against these Detroit Lions, he averages 3 touchdown passes. And when you want touchdown passes and over 250 to 300 yards, cash, that's what we're looking for. So believe it or not, Mitchell Trubisky is a cash game quarterback this week. Week 13. It is 2020.
Hey man, it's 1 minute you lose your job to Foles, looking like you're not going to be in the league anymore, and the next minute you're a cash game play against the Lions. That's life, man. It comes at you quick. Paulie, I think the mid tier has a couple of like the pricing on DraftKings and FanDuel is obviously different. I think there is 2 different tiers here: the mid tier and a value tier on DraftKings. So talk to me about the mid tier first, and then go ahead and just transition right into value.
All right. So I don't think I would play any of these guys in cash, but Taysom Hill is certainly in play. He's pretty much in a Lamar Jackson role at 6.3K against a pretty bad defense. His throw game should be up here, and I don't think they defend the running quarterback all that well. I like Tannehill for tournaments against Cleveland. I like Fitzpatrick. Same with Joe. I think Jared Goff is in play because I like that game as well. In cash, though, I think you spend up and just lock in that 30-plus points at quarterback, especially if you don't really like Dalvin Cook, because there's only like 3 guys to really spend money for on this slate. And if you're thinking Dalvin's going to have a reduced role and he's not in play for cash, then that eliminates one of the spend-ups right there, and there's enough value to go get the expensive quarterback for cash. In tournaments, I do like a lot of cheap stacks. But in the mid-tier, Taysom Hill, Ryan Tannehill, Jared Goff, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm cool with all 4 of those guys, honestly.
So I'll say this about the mid-tier on DraftKings at least, and I would like to hear your guys' opinion. But to me, so obviously Fitzpatrick, yeah, you can make a strong argument. All the running backs are fucking hurt. We'll see if Gaskin's supposed to be off the list, but even if he is, how much is he going to play? He's coming off an MCL thing, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, we understand why he makes sense in tournaments. Same thing with Taysom Hill, he's going to run. But to me, if you look at 2 of the highest total games we have here, is in really highest projected team points are Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, and then Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. And so the game that like I can see a world where the Titans game doesn't go as expected. Not saying that's what I think is going to happen. I do like Tannehill, but the Minnesota one I have a hard time buying. That like Minnesota's not going to score those points, like more so than any other spot, right? And I'm perplexed by it because like Dalvin Cook, obviously, we'll talk about at running back. They're saying he's banged up. Okay, that's fine. But if we're willing to say that Kyler Murray, who's dealing with an AC sprain, is willing to, just man up and play and do what he's got to do and not take it easy because they're playing for a playoff spot, the Vikings are also fighting for their lives. Like they started off like 1-5, and they fought all the way back to this point to where now they're actually in contention. So Dalvin Cook is banged up. Dalvin Cook practiced in full. You're going to tell me that Dalvin Cook's not going to get a full workload? The only way he doesn't get a full workload is if they're up by 3-4 touchdowns and they feel like they can give Madison the ball more. Otherwise, so when I look at the Vikings offense, I feel similar to last week what Joe was saying. I feel like I want something here. If Dalvin Cook doesn't do it, like Paulie was saying, then how does Kirk Cousins not? Because when you look at Jacksonville's defense, Jacksonville's missing, I think, most likely going to be missing 4 members of their secondary, plus Josh Allen, who's their top pass rusher. Like where's the scenario where Jacksonville actually stops them? I just don't see it. So I got Kirk Cousins circled because I do like Cook, and we'll talk about that at running back. But if I don't have Cook, I feel like I'm gonna want something. Like I feel like I want to be covered. But here are the Vikings in one of the highest total games on the slate against a defense that gave up how many points to Baker Mayfield last year, and also gave up over 200 rushing yards combined between Kareem Hunt and Chubb. So, those are the 2 guys in the mid-tier that kind of like, all right, well, if I'm not going Henry, then Tannehill. The Cleveland's almost, you can argue it's the same thing, right? Still no Ward. They do have Myles Garrett back, which helps. And I do think Cleveland's defense, as bad as it's been this year, I think it's a little better than Jacksonville's personally, at least when you compare injuries and everything, right? So where are you guys at with Kirk Cousins? And I know you mentioned Tannehill already, but Kirk Cousins was really the one. And that'll be a theme throughout this show because, like, the Vikings were a team that I was trying to ignore earlier and just say they're chalk to stay away, maybe Cook. But now the more I think about it and the news that's coming in and the value that's opening up, I'm just like, shit, I think I might have to play Kirk Cousins a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned him, so.
Yeah, and I'm fine with him. I just, I don't see how the Vikings don't score on the ground against Jacksonville's D. Like, you talk about their secondary being injured, and they've been bad all season, their secondary, but their run defense is awful too. And I think in cash you do just play Cook, and he practiced in full. Like, why wouldn't he play in full? Only if they had the big lead. And Minnesota's defense is not very good, although with Mike Glennon quarterbacking, although they'll probably pull him quick if he's struggling. Go back to Minshew. But that game has a lot of outcomes. You know what I mean?
We can have a conversation that this week can fit in one of three of the high priced players, even besides quarterback, either Cook, Henry, or Devontae Adams. Now, if Darius Slay is out, we all saw what the man-child DK Metcalf did to his ass on Monday night.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
care.
like even if he's not, like I think out of all three of those plays, I think Devontae is the best play on Sunday. What do you guys think?
I'd I'd say that you can get two of these guys with the value that we have on this slate, on at least on DraftKings. I haven't really messed around on FanDuel yet.
FanDuel is really tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough on
Okay.
FanDuel.
Like picks. And I'd say Dalvin Cook and Devontae are kind of neck and neck. And the big dog, as much as I really hate ever fading this guy, he seems to have stepped behind them to me.
Yeah. I think that's how the ownership will reflect too. I think they'll be owned, but I think Cook will edge them out a little bit. Not to say they'll even be the most popular. Yeah, there you go. You like it, Joe. The edge dong. That's the edge dong right there. So I think Cook will be there, and then I expect Adams to be the next, and then Henry, and I also would rank them the same way. I know our boy Fritzy, who's he's a big Titans fan, and he was the one last week told everybody to play Henry. He likes Henry again, but I'm not saying I don't like Henry at all. I just think I like those two guys ahead of him. I would agree with that.
And like to put a bow on the Kirk Cousins thing, like I think it's viable to play him at quarterback. I think it's viable to like play the receivers without him and like, assume that they do score some on the ground, but one of the receivers does well, and not as a stack or as like a full on like game stack, and run it back with some jack. Like there's a lot of different results that this game's gonna have, or outcomes that this game's gonna have.
With this, like with Cousins, to me, and like I do like Cook. Like I said, I know obviously we'll get a running back soon, but I do like Cook. But it does seem like say I have 5-6 teams and I got Cook on 3. I feel like I have to have at least one Cousins because I'm so invested in that game one way, that I have to have at least an alternative option. Not to mention,
and wouldn't you say though that like you want to have a Viking skill player in every lineup regardless of the QB?
I think it's coming to that point because again, I just don't see a scenario where Jacksonville stops them from scoring. And Joe, you was talking about motivation. My Vikings, same thing, man. Like obviously the Rams and Cardinals is more. Both teams are going for it. Arizona maybe needs the game a little bit more, but both teams need this game. And this one, man, Jacksonville don't need this game. But Minnesota fucking does. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting. With that said, Paulie, wrap it up with some value town at QB. I know Joe touched on a lot of these guys in the mid tier, and then we'll move it over to running back.
So, for the very fact of getting two of these three guys that we just talked about into your lineups, there are cheap stacks that I like that like perfect for GPPs, and you can get as ugly as you want on this slate. I don't expect Danny Dimes to play, and I legitimately think a Colt McCoy plus a Giants cheap receiver against the Seattle defense that's been pretty bad all season is in play, so that you can load up studs. I think Mike Glennon, we all like this Minnesota team. Like it would be really ideal for the Jacksonville Jaguars to kind of keep pace. And Mike Glennon plus a DJ Chark is a very cheap stack that, I think I can play in tournament. Sam Darnold at 5K against the Raiders, a team that I don't believe is very good defensively. And Denzel Mims is like 6th in the NFL in air yards. Like, one of these games, two of those are going to come connect, and he's going to take to the house and have 3 catches for $160 and 2 touchdowns, and break a slate at that cheap. So those 3 right there. And then there's like in that like just under 6K range, Derek Carr against the Jets secondary is terrible, paired up with whichever one of those high upside receivers you want, Ruggs or Aguilar. Matty Ryan against the Saints, who've been awesome against the run and terrible against the pass. Matt Ryan is at home on turf. He's been terrible for the last few weeks, but I could totally see him throwing for 300 and 3 TDs and doing the dirt that way. Carson Wentz has been terrible. But I think he's in play at that cheap price, and all of his receivers are cheap as well. So, you mentioned earlier, CK, you like some of the value QBs. I'm curious which one specifically, but I think a lot are in play, and like my quarterback pool is significantly larger than it's been in a long time because of all those cheap combination stacks that I do like on the low end that I just talked about.
You know what it is, I think, why the ownership is so spread more than usual? Because think about it. We still have Russell Wilson. We have Kyler Murray. We have Watson. We still have these good quarterbacks. It's because, in my opinion, they're all in kind of like situations. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of them have a nut matchup. Like, the Giants, 29th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. The Rams, 32. The Colts 30th, Patriots 25th. Even the Eagles are only 21st. When you combine pace and like how these teams have played, it's not as juicy, and like it's not like we had last week with Patrick Mahomes against Tom Brady. Like we don't have that this week. And the closest thing to it, I think, like Joe said, is the Murray Goff situation. With that being said, I do like Jared Goff. I think that's a nice way to get exposure to that game. I think the game plays very fast, right? Both of these teams have played very fast. We know Cardinals, that's by design. And for the Rams, I guess also by design. I don't think it's an accident that they win. It's not like they're trailing in every game. So, yeah, he would be my favorite. Derek Carr, I have to consider. I hate the fact that I have to consider Derek Carr. But it's the Jets. And that spot has been good to me all year. Like, as a Jeff fan, get mine. You know what I mean? Get mine.
Let me talk about Carr. Here's what I like most about Carr is that he was sort of like the chalk play last week.
Yeah.
And he got busted. So if like ownership wise, people won't go there. They'll kind of be off of him.
Yeah.
I think that makes him a play. And this is like Derek Carr is like, it's just like you don't play him in cash. Why don't you play him in cash? Because when he's popular, he busts. He's not going to be popular, so he's probably going to do fine.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, if there was ever a matchup, I think it's here.
And Jacobs is,
yeah,
like their bell cap.
And yeah, exactly. And Jacobs is out. Now, the only other one I'll mention, I don't think he makes my final cut, but Mitch Trubisky, I will say, at least on DraftKings, is setting up to be a leverage option. Because Montgomery is projecting to be extremely popular. And they're not in the same situation. We're talking about an offense that's one of the worst in the league, right? The Bears offense. However, they are in a really good matchup, right? Detroit's defense is one of the worst in the league. So I'll say that. I don't disagree. I think Joe said a lot of really good points about Trubisky. I think he's on the table. I know, a lot of people want to cover their ears for that. But, I mean, come on. Most of these quarterbacks that I'm into this week, I'd rather cover my ears. Do you think I like playing Kirk Cousins? Ryan Tannehill. Nothing against those guys. Mitch Trubisky, Carr, Goff. Nothing against them, but I would, on a week-to-week basis, I would much rather play Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson. You know what I'm saying? It's just DFS is what we do. We take it week by week. Dirties will be done. Now on to the running backs. Joey, kicking it back to you. Talk dirty to me.
Yeah, up top, we got the two alphas in the room. We got Mr. Cook and Mr. Henry. They're probably the two best running backs in the league right now. Personally, right now in my cash games, I don't have either in there. And I'm not saying you don't play them, and I'm not saying I might not get to one of them. But right now, I feel like that there's some other options in the mid-tier that can match both of these guys on Sunday. It's a matter of just knowing the matchups and playing the matchups better. With Cook, last week he was 11K, and we said he needed to get 30. He didn't do very well. He went out with an injury for at some point. Who came out? They said that he was banged up. He's been getting the volume. You did say that is a must-win situation, but they're also kind of thinking we need to have him for the playoffs, so we're not going to get there either. So I don't know. I just feel like if I was going to play either of the two, I would go down to Derrick Henry. He's in a tough matchup too. He's in a tougher matchup than people think. Myles Garrett is back. He does plug up the run game better than it has been. I feel like with Jonnu Smith out, it's going to be a toss-up whether they're going to throw anymore or not, or need to throw. But I kind of like A.J. Brown a little bit more in this game. But Derrick Henry is good. You know he's going to go off, but he's going to have to go off with touchdowns. He's got to score touchdowns. Doesn't offer anything in the passing game. Now, they did come out today and said that they need to get him more involved, which it could be completely coach speak. I take that for a grain of salt till I see it. But I like that. And then I think if you want to be contrarian a little bit, you can go to the other side of this game with Nick Chubb at 8,700. You know that's what the Browns are going to try and do. And, you know, Chubb can break off some big runs too and compete with Henry. He just doesn't seem to, you know, he won't get all the goal line carries. We know that. We know that they're going to put Hunt in there, who was questionable, but I think he practiced in full and he's fine. So I just feel like of those three, it would be Henry, then Cook, then Chubb. But I'm also cool with fading both in cash because I think there's other options in the mid-tier that I like a lot.
What about you, Paulie?
I do like both. I think you can get both into your squads. I think the running back position is really ugly, and like I love that people are talking about playing David Montgomery. Just I'll take any bet, you know, that he's not in the top 5 running backs on this slate, and you know I like the idea of just getting locking in 20+ points at the position, especially in cash. In tournaments, I think you know it really depends what your stack leaves you money wise, but Cook and Henry stand out to me at this position outside of and you know you can play 3 running backs and catch them. I think you make an effort to get them both, but if I had to cut one out, you know it's Derrick Henry because, as you said, the pass game differential and the matchup differential just kind of gives Cook the boost to me when they're only 300 apart. But I do like them both at the top. I mean, those are really the only 2 guys in the high end.
Yeah, I think the only one, you know, I'll probably have 5-6 teams. The only one that I realistically have in any high exposure is probably Cook. I could see a scenario where I have Chubb in a game stack environment. Same thing for Henry maybe, but Cook is the one that I'd be willing to go back to. Again, I'm not really buying in too much to the take it easy because of his injury. I believe he's banged up, but I also believe the Vikings need this game, and they're not going to want to take any chances. I think in the scenario that Cook doesn't finish the game, and it's not because he got hurt, it's because they're cautious, I think the damage has already been done at that point. And, you know, Cook is already sitting there with 35 plus. But agreed that you taking stands where you take them, but I do agree that it's closer. It's not as easy to just say, oh, it's this guy over that guy, clearly. I don't think that's the scenario. Getting to the mid-tier, kicking it to you, Joey.
The mid-tier, there's 2 guys that I'm pretty much in love with, and they're going to probably be in my lineup right now. First, I'll say James Robinson is a great play. There's nothing wrong with him. At 7,800, I think that he's going to be involved in the whole game. If you want to play him, he's fine. He's kind of like vanilla ice cream, though. But the 2 guys that I'm attracted to, one for 7,200 is Miles Sanders going up against Green Bay. I am attacking this Green Bay defense on the ground on Sunday, and that's what they're going to do. And they're going to give Miles Sanders 20 touches. I'm not worried about it. His price is low enough to where he's going to be just fine. He's going to be catching passes out of the backfield. The other guy, Austin Eckler, 7,000. I think we need to get on this train before he's at 75 or 8,000 next week. He is back. He's facing the Patriots, who give up over 120 yards on the ground. They give up passes out of the backfield. They keep everything in front of them. The thing that I think is that Belichick going to try and take away Keenan Allen, and with Gilmore, who's their best defensive player. That's just going to leave a lot of dump offs to Eckler, and it seems like Herbert is just using Eckler for that. He was awesome last week. Just assume that that role. He actually seemed like he had a bigger role than he did the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yep.
So 2 guys in the mid tier, Eckler and Sanders. Those are the 2 guys I like the best. Kenny and Drake, I don't mind either. Just in the GPP setting to get a piece of that game. And then the guy that you're gonna have to decide. There's like 3 guys like in the 6K range, like right around the same, and you're gonna have to like kind of like which one do you want to think, because I feel like guys like Gallman and David Montgomery, like Montgomery's gonna be really really popular, and we all know what happens when Montgomery is a cash game play. He's just kind of like vanilla. He's gonna get you maybe 11 or 12 points. He's not gonna kill you. Wayne Gallman at 6,100, I think that's a good play, but he's in a bad matchup. But the guy that I'm willing to put in there, if you have the spot, is Jonathan Taylor. I think that at 6,400, he's back from the COVID list. He didn't have COVID, just somebody who was close contact, who was out a week. Jordan Wilkins is banged up. Got a great matchup against Houston. That they give up tons on the ground. To me, Jonathan Taylor at 6,400 is the best of those 3 options in the mid tier. But obviously, Eckler and Sanders are who I like to highlight too.
Word up, Paulie.
So I'm on board with Eckler. He's my favorite play of the slate. I would just lock him in all formats. This matchup, like, just everything points to like him just doing the same or better. And he didn't get in the end zone last week, right? Yeah, like the ceiling is just super, super high with 16 target potential. And, their other massive target share guy, Keenan Allen, running into a really tough spot. It's, on a site that gives you a point for perception, it's just, he really stands out to me. And I think New England's terrible defensively. I think he could break out like an 80-yard run or, screen pass to the house. Like, load me up on Austin Eckler. I think James Robinson is fine. I think you've got to take a long, hard look at Kamara at 7K on this slate, not for catch, but for tournaments. I know his role has changed in the first 2 games, but if they fall behind, I could see that drastically changing, and I think that is a possibility here. And his touchdown like equity is just so high in a game where they're going to probably score 20 to 25 points. So Alvin Kamara is really, really interesting. He's going to be very low owned, and like 7K for Alvin Kamara is just wacky. Do like Miles Sanders, although I think Green Bay has improved against the run. I don't think they're as bad as like their reputation is. Like looking at their metrics against the run, like they really
made
don't
Montgomery look good though. They made Montgomery look good.
Montgomery had one run. Montgomery did terrible in that game. He had one nice run. Green Bay like 18th in rushing yards allowed, 12th in rushing success, 30th in yards gained after first contact, which means they're the best. They're 23rd in allowing 10-yard runs or more. Like, they're really not that bad against the run. And I bet if you looked at like more recently, it's gotten better. And what do you call it? So that's just okay to me. But Miles Sanders is fine. You know what I mean? I just feel like they're gonna fall behind and need to throw, and the ship is really sinking in Philly. I just don't see them jumping out to a lead, which maybe means they probably will. Chris Carson is also really interesting. Like, Carlos Hyde is questionable. If he gets ruled out, that'd be a huge boost to me. And then like Seattle is clearly pivoted to wanting to like run the ball and establish domination. And the Giants defense is decent, but nothing special, I don't think. And Chris Carson, we saw involved in the pass game, getting carries. As long as Hyde's out, he'd be like an elite play. But even with Hyde in at 6'3", we do expect Seattle to score. Chris Carson could certainly be getting 1 or 2 of those. So I like all those guys: Robinson, Eckler, Kamara, Sanders, Carson. But Eckler, Kamara, the two that I've got like the most intention of playing this weekend.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement with Eckler. I think he's underpriced on both sites. It's just a volume thing. We could argue matchup. You could argue New England plays at a slow pace. It's all fine. You just know that, or you expect a certain amount of volume, especially with how bad Lynn looks right now and how much he has like missed Eckler. He's really missed this dude. Like he's really been struggling with to find a consistent running back. My other one, I agree with you, Joe, and like you both talked about him, but I think Joe was a little higher on him. Is Miles Sanders, man? The thing about what Montgomery did against the Packers, he did run for 103 yards, and it was mainly one run, 11 carries, but he had 5 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. That's actually where he scored his touchdown. So I think that Sanders will get usage through the ground and through the air, especially as Wentz continues to struggle throwing the ball downfield. So I'm a little higher on Sanders for tournaments out of the bunch. But I'm with you guys. There are a lot of decent plays here, Chris Carson being one. Hey, I'll say this about Carson, because earlier in the Slack chat, I don't know, I think LD liked him, and I asked LD, I was like, are you concerned that Hyde played so much last week? And it was a genuine question. I just didn't know. And today, I felt a little more comfortable with Carson, hearing that he finally practiced in full, because he's been limited. And so that led to a limited on the field. And he was limited for the first few practices this week, but apparently Friday he got a full practice in. If he's going to practice in full, I'm assuming they're going to go back to using him in a full workload. So I'm back in on Carson and Chip Hip His. Joe, going to kick it to you. It's a value town. What do you got for us?
At Value Town, we got 2 guys that I'll highlight. First one is I think it's bad chalk, to be honest with you. But Devontae Booker. Everybody's loving him because Josh Jacobs is out. And I see it, and everybody's just thinking it's the Jets. But the Jets aren't that easy to run on. So they got to make sure the Raiders get up, and then there's going to be, kind of game flow. And obviously, if he gets it in the end zone, he's going to make value. But I feel like the way that I'm like building my lineups and stuff, I feel like you can get 3 of the guys that I mentioned in the before, or you can move down to Myles Gaskin, assuming if he's activated, because the only other guy they got there is Patrick Laird, and that's the last time I'm going to mention his name on this Wise stream. Other companies, it's like their poster boys. He's like their poster boy, but not for the Wise take. We do not speak his name anymore. But Gaskin is in a great spot if he starts and he's activated, which I think he's going to be. So he is cheaper on both sites than the aforementioned Devontae Booker. And I think he's in a better matchup against the Bengals at home. And, especially like if Tua even plays, that makes Gaskin even a better play to me, because that the passing game is not going to be there with Tua and stuff, so they're going to rely on the running game more. So I think if he comes back, I like Gaskin best on the pay down.
No doubt. Paulie, you're up.
All right. Devontae Booker seems like a terrible chalk play to me. I don't get it.
Thank you. Everybody loves him. I'm not doing it. I'm glad we're right there. I'm glad we're there. And it could pay off. Really could. He could fall into the end zone.
So, like, on DraftKings, Jonathan Taylor's 200 more. Like, I'd play that over. There's a ton of guys I'd play over. Sadly, I would play David Montgomery over him. So, like, if you're deciding between one of these two in cash, do David Montgomery. Devontae Booker, like, this is just like no for me. Like, he probably won't be involved in the pass game that much. That'll probably be Richard. The Jets, like as you mentioned, they're good against the run. There's no saying the Raiders even get out to a lead. Like, the Raiders play super slow. So do the Jets, so there might not just be that many plays. There might not be that many touchdowns. This game is, in my opinion, definitely heading to the under. Yeah, I'm not into Devontae Booker like at all. Um, I'm cool with Gaskin, although he's kind of pricey on DraftKings for like, you know, the uncertainty coming off an MCL deal. But um, if like all those scenarios you mentioned like came to fruition with like Tua becoming the quarterback, um, I don't mind it. But I think I'd be more inclined to play him on FanDuel. Duke Johnson, not in a great spot, but without Fuller, like could see his workload increase, especially in the pass game.
David Johnson's coming back.
Yeah, he's supposed to be
Yeah.
back this week.
So,
Yeah.
so then David Johnson at
Yeah.
5'4". Kenyon Drake's down here, although like I don't really love the idea of attacking the Rams, but he's been pretty good. I think it's possible that the Colts fall behind and Naeem Hines has a big day. James White, Chase Edmonds, I think, is in play. Cam Akers at 4-5, I like for tournaments. We're starting to see his role expand, and I do expect a lot of scoring in this game. Um, I think you mostly go up in mid tier at running back. I don't think you need to come down to these mediocre value plays. Like none of them really stand out to me as very good plays. I guess David Montgomery is like the best of the worst down here, but I'm not into the lower tier for running back. I just think the mid and upper tier are going to outscore them by so much.
Paulie, let me ask you this one thing about James White. Like Chargers give up a ton out of the backfield catches. I think they're like worst in the league.
Yeah.
I mean DK. This is a DK play to me.
Yeah, of course.
So like, and he scored 2 touchdowns last week, didn't he?
Yep.
Like to me, like I like him more than like Damian Harris. Like that's the way I feel like, and I feel like the Chargers are going to score enough points being at home to where I feel like out of all those guys that you mentioned down below, I'd be in on James White the most. He has the biggest upside.
For sure. And like he's going to be like 2% owned at most. Just only getting 1 target last week is like, whoa. You know what I mean? But with really no competition for targets at the backfield with Burkhead still out, that number could be as low as 1 target. It could be as high as 15, depending on the way
That's
games.
weird.
And I do think that they do trail,
Well, that's the part. That's the thing right there, right? They were winning that game last week. Like, they fucking won. They beat the Cardinals. But I agree. I think that in this scenario, you would expect them to be trailing more. So I'll say this: it's a consensus with Booker, right? I'm not into Booker that much, and number one, I wasn't into Jacobs to begin with in this matchup. I agree with Joe. This hasn't really been that great of a running spot. The Jets haven't been that bad against them. The secondary is really where they're terrible. And on top of that, Booker's not even, I don't even know if he's going to be considered the third down back anyway, because they do have Jalen Richard, who they've always liked to throw to. So to me, between Booker and Montgomery, who are the same price on DraftKings, it's clearly Montgomery. And I'll say this, I do like Montgomery more than I think Paulie does, and I understand Paulie's merit. And listen, like, this guy is chalk, shouldn't make anybody feel easy. But I do think there's something to Mitch Trubisky being the quarterback. Like, Trubisky is always thrown to his running backs, right? Like, Tyreek Cohen, all these guys were a thing. I know it's not the same role, but I think Trubisky will check down. And I think that the fact that Montgomery is playing 88, 90% of the fucking snaps, if Trubisky does anything against a Detroit team that we expect to struggle against the Bears defense, we should see a lot of opportunities. And now, Allen Robinson is apparently questionable, right? He picked up an injury at practice on Friday. So what happens now if Allen Robinson misses? I think that the game is going to be even uglier, but I do think that could lead to Montgomery getting more opportunities, whether it be through the run or the pass game. Detroit is first in fantasy points allowed to running backs as of now. So Montgomery's the one that, like, of those two guys, of those two chalk running backs that are around the same price, I'll have more of. Moving on to Paulie, real quick, just to hit. Allen Robinson picked up an injury at practice today, so he's questionable. He got downgraded today. Would him being out
Yeah.
move the needle? Does it make you any more interested in David Montgomery?
Slightly.
Yeah, okay. I could dig it. The next spot in this tier that I would like to attack would be Houston. Right? I want to attack Houston. It's very fucking tough though. Very tough. You got 3 dudes in there. You have no idea. Like they game plan to which one they want. I like Taylor because, to be honest with you, if I had to pick one, I like Taylor because I think Taylor's the guy that's going to actually run the ball, and that's what I want against Houston. And to be honest with you, I think Houston's going to struggle offensively. Watson last year over his career has always struggled without Hopkins. This year, his numbers go down drastically when Fuller's missed. So I'm a little worried. Like we'll get to receiver. I really like Cooks. We'll talk about that. But I'm a little worried that Watkins is going to get locked into one guy and just kind of force things. Now, maybe he runs, maybe he's diverse, and I don't necessarily think the Colts defense is great, but I do think that they're at the very least average, right? Like at the very least, they're pretty good. So I do expect Watson to struggle a little bit, and which is why I would justify Taylor, because I think Indy will actually be able to run the ball more if given the opportunity.
Hey, CK, one last thing. You know how you were talking about Allen Robinson missing practice? Darnell Mooney missed practice too. So the Bears' 2 receivers missed practice on Friday. One that opens up his knee. They say it's precautionary, but like, I mean, they say it's that. I mean that will open up obviously when we get to receivers or Anthony Miller, but that makes it almost. I hate even saying it. It makes David Montgomery even a better play.
It does.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, and like I said, I do think Trubisky, to me, Trubisky is that difference maker. I think he will throw it to Montgomery. He threw it to him 5 times last game. I think he will. He did throw the ball to Tyreek on 3rd downs and all that kind of stuff. Montgomery's the only one they got. That's it. That's he. As they say in Miami. That's he. Moving over to wide receivers, Joe, kicking it back. Oh, wait. Listen, call me a homer if you want. But if you really want to punt running backs, if you really want to punt it, I don't mind Gore. I really don't. 4,300. He's getting the primary carries for the Jets. Oakland Raiders suck against the run. It would be a little bit of leverage. Also.
And even while trailing almost every minute of every game this year, they have the lowest by far pass rate.
They continue to run. They continue
to run.
Bro, no, this is the best. Adam Gase recently said, he said he feels bad. He let Darnold down. He didn't do a good job of putting him in a good situation, developing him. And then he says, but we're going to continue to feed Frank Gore the ball. Because that's how you develop, you know? That's how you develop.
That guy is like Tourette's or something. He's like multiple personalities.
He's a strange one, man. He's a strange one. Yeah. I think con artist is what they call him. People like him. Yeah. All right.
Is he still?
Does anyone? I don't know. I mean, I think he's here to get you the number 1 pick in a draft. That's his job. Like you want the number 1 pick?
Yeah.
That's what he does.
That's the mission.
You know what I mean? That's what he does. You know. Joe, receivers, man.
Do you guys know which game Fuller missed this year? There's only one game that he missed. Do you guys remember? I know it was early in the year.
Yeah, why? Oh, how did Watson do? Is that what you wanted to know?
How the game played without him.
Oh boy, I don't know. We'd have to go back to his game logs.
Yeah, I can figure it out. Right.
It's Fuller.
Looks like it was. So he played week 1. Week 2. It looks like he has 0 stats. Was it week 2?
Yeah, okay, week against Baltimore.
I'm assuming they had a bye in week 8.
That was when Baltimore was competent too. Yeah.
Seems so long ago that Baltimore was competent. Seems like so long ago. All right, Joe, receivers.
Yeah, receivers. Okay, so it's littered with receivers. I mean, you can go. There's 20 deep this week. So up at the top, obviously Devontae Adams. We've kind of touched on him at 9.5. He just got a great matchup no matter who he plays. And DK Metcalf, you could play him any day. I don't care about James Bradbury. He's not going to stop him. Okay. Calvin Ridley, he is great too. But I think we got Julio. Is he coming back? What's the deal with that?
Like they're expecting him to play. I heard.
So that helps Ridley. He's still not, to me, he's overpriced at that spot. Like we were speaking about this, I think, on the first look, that he hasn't really shown us paid off his price at 8.4 in a while. Like he's not going to get you a 0, but he's not going to get you a 30 anymore. He's like 25. Like he just doesn't have that ceiling. Ridley does. So when you pair him with the guys that he's around, like I'll take AJ Brown at 8,200. To me, there's no Denzel Ward, there's no Jonnu Smith. I just think targets, the volume is going to be there. He's trying to keep up with his fellow Ole Miss rebel DK. I just like, of the guys up top, I just like AJ Brown the best. It's definitely, if you think about it, if Henry bust, or not even bust, if Henry doesn't make value, it's probably because AJ Brown went off. And AJ Brown has been like a top 5 receiver since he's been back from injury. So I'm, getting on the AJ Brown train this week. I think Keenan Allen at 8,100 is going to be shut down by Gilmore, but I still think he's going to get his targets. I think Herbert's going to go there. So if you want him in a GBP, that's fine. And that's where I'll stop. We can go on mid-tier.
I prefer we call him AJ Breezy. Paulie, receivers.
Yeah. Love Devontae at the top. Really like DK. I think he's just a man amongst boys, and I've heard some things that like him and Russ, are trying to establish him as like the best, quarterback receiver combo in the NFL, and it just hasn't seemed to matter whether it's a good matchup or a bad one. If they need to throw to him, and not even need, but he's how they move the ball, and the Giants they don't have anyone close to capable of stopping him. So he's really interesting as like a contrarian PPP pivot. DeAndre Hopkins has a really tough matchup. I don't think I go there because I like Joey. I do really like AJ Brown at 7.6. I think Cleveland has a 50% chance of being ahead in this game. I think they've got a 20% chance of being ahead by 2 touchdowns early. And I think even if they are trailing, like they could have their success through the pass, the Titans. So I do like AJ Brown with Denzel. Let's just face out. I guess I'll cut it there, 75 on it. You know what? Let me take down to 7. Tyler Lockett, just meh. Adam Thielen, we already talked about that. We all really like the Vikings offense, and if you're not, I don't care how you do it, stack, one off, but you want exposure to at least one Viking skill player this weekend in your lineups. Ridley at 7.2 is all right. I don't expect the Falcons to have much success on the ground, and the way New Orleans defense is playing, Atlanta should be trailing in this game. There's just too many question marks to really go hot heavy there. Mike Thomas, I do like, especially in stacks. And I'll cut it right there. So AJ Brown, DK, and Devontae on the high end for me.
Boom. Agree with you fellas that is very deep. AJ Brown I will have with Tannehill stacks. I will have Thielen in Kirk Cousins stacks. Holla at your boy. Mid-tier, Joe.
Yeah, mid-tier. This is where there's a lot of, to the guys that Paulie mentioned. You got Jefferson and Thielen. I feel like they're both GPP options. Lockett has a good matchup. This could be a Lockett game. They're all GPP options for me. They're all great. They're all fine. I think Jefferson's price is a little bit up there with Thielen. They kind of I don't know. I think they kind of kill each other's ceiling most of the time, but we have seen Jefferson have great ceiling games with Thielen there. So Just a matter of you think Jacksonville's going to score. Michael Thomas being 7,200 is just crazy. But the guy I like the most above 7K in the mid tier is Robert Woods. He has last year, he had 20 receptions on 30 targets for 239 yards and 1 touchdown against the Cardinals. The year before that, he had another 170 yards and 2 more touchdowns, as well as 12 more receptions. So, to me, the last 2 years, he has absolutely taken it to the Cardinals. And I think if you're going to play Murray, if you just want to play Murray and Woods, even in cash, it's a great correlation play. Plus, you know that Woods is going to give you a little bit of, they usually try to give him like a couple carries a game, it seems like he gets.
Yep.
So I like him a lot at 7,100. Allen Robinson, man, it was almost going to be a lock button if this didn't happen with the knee. So it just makes you pause, because if Fitzpatrick is the starter, which he should be, I think we all agree that Fitz should be the starter. Parker makes a great play at 6,800 against a terrible secondary. DJ Chark is going up against a terrible secondary too. It's a great bring back if you're doing a stack of that game. Let's see. And then the guy that had a great game last week that I think you can go right back to, and I don't think you're really chasing points, is Jarvis Landry at 6K. He's the guy that's going to be getting all the targets. You think this game is going to shoot out, there's going to be more passing than everybody thinks, because this bad secondary. So it's like this is where I'll land up, and I'll throw it to you, Paulie. Like that total is like 56. Like, I just don't see it getting there with Henry and Chubb both just running their asses off all game. There's got to be passing. Am I right?
Agree completely. I do think the total is 53.5 though, but
okay.
Regardless.
Yeah. Like, I just don't. I just feel like it's there's got to be. And so Landry at 6K, we saw what he did last week, and we saw, I think, what's his name's out, the corner from SC, I forget his name. He's out again this week from the Titans. I like him at 6K.
Yeah.
Boom. What you got, Paulie?
About the same names. Really range on DraftKings. Devontae Parker, as long as Fitz is QB, we've seen his targets dramatically increase, and Cincinnati's secondary is god awful right now. Jarvis Landry, I like no matter what kind of. He could throw for a touchdown in this game. I do think that whether they're trailing or leading, like, he had his hand in that. Love both the Rams receivers, but I do like what you said about Woods, and I feel like it's a much better spot for Woods than Kupp, but I do like them both. They're both underpriced on DraftKings, and the Rams trailing, like, you're going to see Goff throw 60 times and let them beat a Kupp and Woods. So, like both of them. Brandon Cooks at 5'6".
I forgot him.
Like,
mm-hmm.
He's going to be so popular. He doesn't separate from Robert Woods, in my opinion, at all. And one of them is projected to be like 12% owned, and one's projected to be like 30. DJ Chark, I think, is a phenomenal play. Like, the Minnesota secondary is bad, and DJ Chark is legitimately at 5'4", is a bargain. Should be trailing most of, if not all, of that game. Corey Davis at 5'1" on DraftKings. Like, we've seen him slates multiple times this season, and if it's not Henry, there's no Jonnu, and they're trailing. Like, we've seen him have 10 target games with AJ there. Like, he's the way to kind of get a little bit different, I guess, in that game. And I think he's just as likely as AJ Brown to have a good game, and he's significantly cheaper. A lot to like in this mid tier. Like I would envision two of those guys in that group will be in the bulk of my lineups this week. Like I really like the mid tier, although I do think the value is equally GPP upside loaded. But this mid tier is deep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one thing I want to ask, and now I understand that, Joe, you made a good point with the history, though if you look back at Cooper Kupp in those games, he also had pretty good games. Woods had the one big blow-up where he went for 33 DraftKings points, but when you look at him, both Kupp, in the second game, I think Woods had 20, Kupp had 20, 22, and he had 18 the first game. Because to me, I actually like Kupp more. I understand that Woods, they're diverse in how they get him the ball, but I do think their offense is a little bit different this year. I feel like we haven't seen as many like rush attempts and things like that. And I know Cooper Kupp has played more out of the slot than Robert Woods has. And slot receivers in particular have really fucked up Arizona this year, like real bad. Tyler Lockett did it twice. Cole Beasley, 11 receptions, 109 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder, 8 receptions, 116 yards and a touchdown. So even CeeDee Lamb, 7 receptions, 64 yards. So this is a spot where they've just had a vulnerable weakness all season long. So assuming that they continue to put Kupp out of the slot more than Woods, I actually like Kupp a little bit more this year. But I do understand the points. It's just, to me, it was a little closer. It seemed like you guys were more on Woods in like a clear way. So I'm just curious on why it's Woods so much more.
Like, I'm 50-50, like maybe 55-45 in favor of Woods. I like them both. And that's the only annoying part to me because, like, to go heavy on one versus the other is tough.
Right.
Because, like, they're just both so clearly in good spots, like, likely to be trailing. But, doubtful that they're both, elite plays. So it's like,
Right.
Which one do I play? But if you're stacking the top, I do like the idea of both. Although I do think the number 11 is really growing in the offense,
Reynolds.
and he's also very intriguing.
Josh Reynolds.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Quick shout out to Joe K, who won. I believe he was one of the Listener League winners last week. $5 super chat. Shout out to the nation. Looking to do dirties again this week in the DK contest. That's right. Getting the Listener League. Listener League is free to get in, nation. Winner gets $25. We have one for FanDuel, one for DraftKings. FanDuel, we only have 20 slots to get in quick. DraftKings, we do have up to 200. But it's free to get in. The links are in the description here. So hop in there. No excuses not to. Okay. And the last thing I'll touch on is the Brandon Cooks situation. So right now I have a hard time getting off Brandon Cooks. Now that's preventing me from doing the triple stacks that I like to do normally, which this week I don't love a ton of triple stacks. I kind of like it, just the one guy. But Cooks, like is this a similar situation to that week 2 spot? Like is the Colts defense, should we consider them to be similarly good to how good the Ravens played the Texans? Because I do think Watson struggles a little bit, but I also think there's a scenario where Brandon Cooks gets 15 targets. Because one thing we know about Watson is he does like to zone in on one guy and just shoot him the ball constantly. He did it for years since he's been in the league with D-Hop. So we know he will do that. Do we think he's going to do that here? Because every time I know he's going to be popular. And if you're going to fade chalk, a lot of times the receiver is the best one to fade or at least go underweight because there's variance involved, right? The ball has to be thrown to him. He still has to catch the ball. But it's hard for me to get away from him at these prices because I just anticipate the usage being so high, and I do expect the Colts to get ahead. So I don't know, man. I'm stuck. Like I agree with you that like Robert Woods for only another couple $100 is like tempting in tournaments, but realistically, Brandon Cooks is the only option on that team.
I don't know about that.
You really think Kiki Kuti is like in this? We literally got Cooks, Kiki Kuti, his tight ends compared to Jared Goff, Josh Reynolds, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and their running backs. I don't think it's that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm bugging on this one. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is that if you play Kuti, which he is cash viable because there's no stills,
Sure.
He's 4,800. You know what I'm saying? So you're what you're hoping for is like 5 for 40. Like when you're doing a cash game lineup, he's affording you to get other people.
Sure.
So you're not you just don't want a zero. Of course, Cooks is going to be a better play, but that will also afford you to get, move up to Robert Woods or AJ Brown or somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? Get you in to where it's maybe higher. Like, I don't know about ceiling because we see Cook ceiling, but and he is also a good secondary too. He's gonna be against this guy Rocky Sin, which is very beatable.
Well,
But
they're zone anyway.
I think it's game to be weird.
They're almost all zone anyway. So it's really going to be the scheme. Do they scheme to take Cooks out? Which makes sense. Why wouldn't you? He's all they got. If we can see that, you would think they know that. You would think.
Because it's not like you think that David Johnson is going to take over this game,
right.
Even if he's healthy, right? So it's like, okay, we take away Brandon Cooks. David Johnson?
No.
Brandon Cooks? He's 6,500.
65. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So, when if you compared around where he is, obviously, when he's like GJ Chark is 6,300.
Right.
Cup is 6,600. Parker is 6,800. A-Rob is 6,900. And Woods is 71.
Mm-hmm.
So he's around guys that are very tempting that, if Fitz plays, I like Parker way better than Cooks.
It's a tough to say. I tell you what, the decision is easier to go into weight on him on FanDuel. Number one, he's not as cheap over there. Number two, you need a touchdown. So just because his volume got nothing to do with touchdowns. On DraftKings, he's cheaper and like every target basically counts. So it's like if he gets 12 targets,
I can see that.
I think that's really what it comes down to. I agree with you, Joe, on FanDuel. And like honestly, with FanDuel anyway, I always think chalk is more favorable on FanDuel because you need touchdowns. Volume don't mean shit. I'll never forget. I think it was 2 seasons ago where Julio Jones was like massive chalk on both sides. He busted on FanDuel because he didn't get a touchdown, and he went for like 40 on DraftKings because he had like 200 yards and fucking hit every bonus there was.
20 catches, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, these are definitely some of the, I think for me anyway, some of the biggest decisions I'm gonna have to make this week. What to do with guys like Cooks, Montgomery, etc. That being said, Joe, kicking it back to you for Value Town.
Okay. Would you say like having a Cooks or a Kuti in a lot of your lineups makes a lot of sense? Like getting at least one of them?
I do, because even though I think Watson struggles, he's gonna have to throw. The game's got to be played. It's just like, and like you said,
for 24 points, like who's gonna be involved in those 24 points?
In the 24 points,
I could see him running in one.
He could run one in.
Sure,
definitely.
I could see David Johnson running in one.
But again,
one of the touchdowns was caught by Duke Johnson last week.
Even even like the zone sets up poorly for rushing quarterbacks, like their zone defense, because the defender, when you play man, all the secondaries got their back turned to you because they're guarding the man. When you play zone, they're all staring at the quarterback. So like I am a little worried, and that's the reason I like Cooks, because I think when Watson gets like desperate, he just latches onto one guy and just kind of puts it all on his shoulders. We don't know. He hasn't really been in the situation much, and against the Ravens, it didn't happen. He had 8 targets, caught like 5 of them. He had 14 DraftKings points. Nothing special. However, that was also at a time where him and Cooks weren't really gelling yet. They didn't have a preseason. He came over here brand new. Since that time period, even with Fuller, we've seen his trust level in Cooks go up dramatically over the last, X amount of weeks since then.
He was outperforming Fuller.
Right, exactly.
And all the metrics.
Exactly. But it is a tough call. I do respect the Colts defense. I do. And it's a tough call. But
do you think?
What's that?
What do you think his ownership will be?
Cooks?
Yeah.
On DraftKings, I think it'll be somewhere around 30 to 35. I honestly do. He's just right in that mid tier. He kind of fits with no matter what build you're doing. And that worries me a little bit for a receiver. It does. But again, the volume's hard to ignore. Joe, take us down to Value Town.
Yeah, back to Brandon Cooks, when you go on like one of the big websites, and the thing says "Eat the chalk" with Brandon Cooks. He's gonna be chalky. Okay. I mean, literally, that's literally, you go on this website, it says "Eat the chalk" with Brandon Cooks. Okay, so it's funny. Like I see it. I could totally see like the fade, like too, like playing Kuti at 4,800 and him just like getting that. Like I said, but I could totally, I understand it too. I also think that this also website is way more towards DraftKings, anyways. Value Town, though, we talked about Kuti. The other guy that I think that we need to like highlight, first of all, in GPPs, Alan Lazard, I think, is in a great spot. People are going to go to Adams, and with Rodgers, and Lazard is now, he's back, he seems healthy. Michael Pittman is really, really popular. I'm starting to hear a lot about him too. He had a dud, but I think you could go right back to him. And then if Mooney and A-Rob is out, we talked about it before, 4,900, Anthony Miller, I think he's way more interesting on DK, but I think you would get an uptick in targets, especially in that matchup. That's about it. I don't think you need to go really that far down after that.
Yeah, and to be clear, Joe, I know I gave you some contrarian take on the Kuti situation. But I am mentally, I'm more so where Paulie had mentioned, where I feel like it's one or the other, right? Like if I decide not to play Cooks, then I think I do got to play Kuti. Kicking it back to you, Paulie, for Value Town.
Yeah, so I think value at receiver is loaded, and like it has the most like tournament winning upside. Like you can go get yourself a Kyler Murray, a Dalvin Cook, even a spend up receiver if you go like triple pay down at receiver, and obviously that use one in the flex, but like there's so much down here. Like Denzel Mims is going to have an explosion game. It's like the exact same Robbie Anderson role. Now that we got Darnold back, like the deep ball connection is probable, and I think the Raiders are like the team that are susceptible to it. So like really like Denzel Mims, but Rashard Perriman is like equally in that conversation. Henry Ruggs at 4 or 5, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, although Lazard being back definitely like puts a wrench in his like target volume upside, but we've seen he only needs 1 or 2 plays to really explode. Darius Slayton against the Seattle secondary that's been god awful at 4-6. Any of the Bengals receivers, Tyler Boyd is 4-7. AJ Green is 3,100. Like, I know Miami's got some decent corners, but they should be trailing, and their coach still threw with Brandon Allen last week. Jalen Rager is 4,500. His role in that pass game is legit, especially on the deep ball. Andy Isabella is, we're still expecting Fitzgerald to be out. The Rams do have a shutdown corner. Like, Isabella is an explosion waiting to happen and could see a target increase. They could be trailing. You got Kiki Kuti down there at 3,500. It is loaded with like high upside value plays, There's like more down here. Colin Johnson had a big game, but with Chark back, I guess I wouldn't talk about that. You talked about Pittman, a guy that I'm very bullish on. There's a chance Houston's leading, and this is on turf, and you can certainly throw on Houston. And even if the Colts win, like it's a very good possibility that they, some of it comes from Pittman. I don't see anyone on Houston capable of stopping him. They're not very tall in the secondary, not very fast. Mike Williams at 4-8 is in a blow-up spot against New England if they do take away Keenan Allen. There is so much down here in value section. None of them are like home runs, but for tournaments, these are the guys you got to start, sticking into your lineup to help you get those studs. at other positions. And when these guys go off at low percentage ownership, that's how you really like win tournaments.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need him if you want to be able to fit multiple studs for sure. Real quick, because on our Slack chat, I've been actually seeing a lot of Jets talk, and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. But I'll acknowledge that I think there are some players who are viable. So, who is your favorite Jets receiver between Perriman, Crowder, and Mims?
Mims
by a mile for me.
Mims.
Mine's actually Perriman. Mine's actually Perriman. Part of that is because I think schematically they have him as the number one, and I think the Raiders will offer very little resistance. I think Jonathan Abrams also out, who is one of their better younger secondary players for the Raiders. Mims would be a close second for me, but I was just curious, and I'm sure the nation would appreciate it. But to be honest with you, I'm gonna be dead honest. The reason it's Perriman is because he fit more when I was doing the Bills. Couldn't find the $200 for Mims. What a world! All right. We'll kick it over to tight ends and wrap this bad boy up. Joe, talk to us about some tight ends.
Tight end. Core play. Darren Waller. Hey up. Probably the safest on the board. 7K. He's just facing the Jets, who are one of the dead last against tight ends. They've given up the 14 most yards, the most TDs, and the third most fantasy points to tight ends this season. They're also going to be without – the Jets are going to be without the defender Bradley McDougall on IR, and he's not close to returning. So I just feel like pay up for tight end and cash. They make good tight ends look great. He's like the Kelsey of this week because there's no Kelsey on there. Dallas Goedert and, with Ertz there, I think Goddard makes a great GPP play because people are going to be scared off of him because Ertz is back. And then everything else, like I think Hawkinson is fine and Hunter Henry is fine again, but all those guys are just falling in the end zone, hopefully. I think Evan Ingram had a decent matchup. We saw what Goddard did to Seattle last week, so maybe Ingram will be there if you like that with Colt McCoy as a contrarian little stack.
Boom. Paulie.
Yeah, I'm on the complete opposite end of that. I think the value at tight end is just elite. And like when you compare Waller at 6K to the receivers we talked about in that mid tier, like Brandon Cooks is 400 cheaper, Woods is the same price. I'm playing those guys over Waller. I'm not using that 6K on Waller or any of the more expensive tight ends like Anthony Fusker, Stone Min, Jordan Akins, 2.9. I'd be playing one of those two in cash, and then I really like Cole Kmet. I think he blows up this week, especially with those receivers going down. This guy's is like legit athletic, like similar to Travis Kelce. He was like a second-round pick out of Notre Dame, I believe. Knows for the end zone. He's already like taking the pass game away from Old Man River, and with Trubisky there, he likes going to the tight end. If both those receivers are out, Cole Kmet would be in playing cash as well. But the pay down so that you can spend up at other positions, in my opinion, like I think I play anyone besides those three tight ends this week.
It's funny. I'm actually dead smack in the middle with you both. And what I mean by that is as of right now, I've got 50% Waller and then I've got 50% Fursker. Which, like, obviously it's early, so those are more or less dummy teams. But I've pretty much decided that I either want to go all the way to the top to Waller. And to justify that, there is like, when you look at the receivers, you talk about Cooks at 5'6". The difference is, like, there's so much ceiling competition with Cooks. There's so many guys, Chark, all these guys that have similar ceilings. They could all go for 30. At the tight end position, even if, say, a Fursker does well, realistically, I know his ceiling he's shown to be higher than I'm going to say, but realistically, say you'd be satisfied with like a 15. You'd be like, all right, Fursker fucking crushed his salary at 15. Great. But if Waller happened to go for 30, and if there was a spot for him to do it, it would be after the Raiders just played the worst game of their life against the New York Jets, who have given up the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So that would be my argument for playing Waller. That being said, you got an opportunity to really get a min-price tight end, which allows you to be able to go up. I had to have both. I had to have it both ways. And what it came down to is on teams where I didn't have Cooks or some spend up like Adams or something, I was able to go ahead and because I can play Eckler and those mid-tier guys and still get Waller. It's no problem. But when I had Cook and those studs in there, and I think that's really where Paulie's coming from. I know, Paul, you had hinted towards trying to load up on the studs. There's no way you're paying up a tight end. No fucking way. Like, you're getting an opportunity. Yeah. You can't play a $2,500 player at wide receiver. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm right in the middle. Half my builds will go all the way to the bottom and punt it real dirty like, and half my builds were, okay, I went a little more balanced. I didn't use a stud, so I'm going to go with and pay up and try to max out the position. So I thought it was funny that Joe's like immediately like, yeah, I'm going Waller. Paulie's like, I'm going down. Because that's really where I'm at, man. I'm one or the other. I'm either going way down dirty or I'm riding up to Waller. All depends on the builds, defenses, and then we'll pick our favorite games and we'll get it the fuck up out of here. Do best bets and all that shit. Best bets are coming, Joe. Prepare.
No, I know. Oh no, I already got all right.
Them. Yeah, you dirty like you know. What about defenses, Joe?
I like the Green Bay Packers at home against the Carson Wentz Eagles. So yes, I mean, he's just good for like.
Got to get exposure to that. Like
it's just a good like sacks. You know what I mean? Like a couple picks. Like they might gonna give up some points, and they're gonna get but you probably are gonna get a couple sacks and just some picks and stuff. I like the Saints against the Falcons. You saw what they did. 2 weeks ago at home. Now they're on the road against them. And the Saints defense has just been good. The Dolphins obviously at home against the Bengals. They're fine. I like my favorite pay down. I think the Jets are fine, but my favorite pay down defense, I don't know what their price is on DraftKings is, but I like the Falcons. This is the second time that they're going to see Taysom Hill in 2 weeks, and their price did not go up from like the first time where I said play him and Taysom was like mega chalk, and I'm like they're going to at least get you 6 or 7 points. We saw what Taysom Hill did last week against a real defense. Now he's playing again in the dome against Atlanta, who like shut down Derek Carr last week in the Raiders. So I like the Falcons against facing this Taysom Hill for the second time in 3 weeks.
Boom. What about you, Paulie?
Yeah, admittedly, I have not looked at defenses very much. So this may change a lot, but I definitely think the Falcons are in play. That one stood out to me. Again, stars and scrubs life for me. And like, I'm either punting or playing something I think has like real ceiling. So I'm like looking at the cheap ones, and the Falcons certainly stand out as an option. I just think that, Taysom Hill could easily fumble, that they recover to the house or throw a pick six or get sacked, definitely opportunity for stuff to happen there. I do think the Jets are in play as well. At home, like nothing's ever as easy as it's supposed to be. And even though I think the Jets are trying to lose, I could just see them playing with a little bit of pride. I think the game's going to be very, very slow paced, and like it's going to be hard for any team to really get up by a big lead. So I'm there with the Jets. Especially with Jacobs out, I think that opens up the opportunity for the Raiders to struggle offensively. Vikings are certainly in play. Their defense has been impressive against Mike Glennon. I think the Chargers are in play. 2-6 is just very cheap, and there's just not much experience on that New England offense. I think the Raiders are in play against the Jets, obviously, as another, but they're kind of pricey. What's down here? If Tua played, I think the Bengals would be somewhat viable as a 2-3. And then, the, taking the defense against the Eagles has been like nuts pretty much all season. So certainly the Packers are in play. The Saints are in play because I don't know what's going on with the Falcons offense. I think I lean towards the spend downs and punt, but nothing really stands out for me at defense right now.
Yeah, as of right now, I'm probably going to eat the chalk. And again, most of the tournament contests I play in are fairly small for an NFL contest size. The Bears on DraftKings 3,100 on FanDuel. I think pricing comes into play. It's a little different, but I think the Bears at 3,100 at home against a Galladay-less Matt Stafford. Obviously, there's pass to failure there, but I do genuinely think that the Bears are a good defense, and it's going to come down to if their offense can stop putting them in bad positions. But definitely a few options, and I agree with you guys on some of those punts, man. I mean, and if you have the money, the Packers do seem ideal. All right, that's going to do it for the Position by Position Nation. We appreciate you. Hit the like button if you haven't already. I got a bunch of y'all watching us live, but the likes don't really equate, so please hit the like. Really helps us out. We've got we're gonna pick our favorite game stacks, and then we will our favorite game 2 stack, I should say, and then we'll go ahead and do some best bets and get the fuck up out of here. Joe, you first, man. Pick a game.
Game I like to stack. I'm gonna go with the Rams and the Cardinals. The stack I like Kyler Murray with Christian Kirk, bringing it back with Woods and Cup. I like both of them if you're going to do that. And then stack it up with the running backs from the other games and fix it with tight end, see what you have left there. That's what I would do with that game. And then, yeah, that's the game. I'll flip it to you, Paulie.
Yeah, I like a lot of stacks this week. Whether it's value combinations, spend up combinations, but right now the ones in terms of like actual game stacks where like it's close and back and forth and goes to the moon. The Rams Cardinals game certainly stands out to me. I love that the total's lower than doesn't really like make the game stand out. I think if that game had like a 54 total, it'd be like super popular on the slate. And then I really like have a weird feeling that the Saints Falcons game blows up. Back and forth, classic Saints Falcons type of game, and that's very, very contrarian. So you get guys like Kamara, Julio, Ridley at very, very low ownership with massive, massive ceilings, and on the dome, on the turf, terrible secondaries on both sides. Like there's a chance that game does go off, and I like that as a game stack as well.
Yeah, I'm going to join the consensus. The Rams-Arizona game stands out the most to me. I like the golf side a little bit more because I'm conscious of price, and on DraftKings you're getting way more by going down to golf. But I like the game also. Both teams need it. Both teams play fast, especially the Cardinals, so that would be mine as well. Best bets, and then we're out of here. Joe, you're up first.
Best bets. I'm going to take the under in the Cleveland-Tennessee game, the over in the Rams-Arizona game, and the over in the Philly-Green Bay.
Okay. Paulie?
I'll take the under in the Raiders-Jets game. I'll take the under in the Cleveland game with Joey. And I will take the I'll take the I'm gonna just kill it with those two unders, I guess. Nothing else. I don't want to just say something to say something.
I feel you. I'm gonna go with the Rams -3. I'm going to go with the New York Jets +8, and I will go with the Minnesota Vikings -10. But I think it's 10.5 now. That's fine. Boom, doing it. And that is gonna do it.
I like the Jets.
Right? I mean, why not? We know we think that we like the players a little bit on the Jets. We think the Raiders defense sucks arse. You know, all day. And yes, Joey is here to remind you that the Dodgers are the World Series champions of 2020. That's going to do it, Nation. We appreciate you guys. We'll have articles up for those of you subscribed over at whitesticks.com. The projections and all that's up. I'll be editing them throughout the weekend. Patio Joe's article is usually the first one up. I'm sure it'll be out sometime Saturday. Paulie and mine will be following probably either Saturday night, Sunday morning as usual. And, of course, we'll be in the Slack, man. Just pumping it, trying to game plan and do what we do. Should be some news coming out that could change a few things, but we'll be ready and waiting. Anything in closing from you guys? Joe, you first?
No, man, just enjoy week 13.
Boom.
That's all I got.
Boom.
Is that it, Paulie the Boom?
Boom.
For Patio Joe, for Paulie D, myself, the entire White Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Peace.
Boom.